Ottawa is set to announce an energy deal with Alberta tomorrow, one that many people thought would never happen, that the Prime Minister says will create the right environment for a new pipeline from Alberta to BC. It's super controversial. People have been debating for a long time whether we should push Alberta heavy oil to the Pacific, even if it means loosening the tanker ban in the storm-lashed Hecate Strait, which is something that clashes with BC's government entirely, as I'll show you, and also tests the veto power of the First Nations in the BC coast. But as with most things when it comes to federal to provincial negotiations, there is a catch. It seems Alberta only gets a path to a pipeline by accepting tougher industrial carbon taxes and carbon capture agreements, a trade-off that critics say kind of exposes carbon pricing as a money-making policy first, above and beyond an environmental strategy. Now, at the same time, BC is saying that no private company even wants this project and nobody's going to buy it, while conservatives are saying this whole thing is symbolic. But beneath the politics is a bigger question for every Canadian. Are we willing to sacrifice resource wealth while other oil nations thrive, or is the country finally ready to confront the trade-offs required to get more Canadian energy projects shipped around the world? First, we'll go to the BC Premier David Eby, who is entirely against this unless BC is given enough money.
There is not a world in which the current price of oil, a private company is going to step up and pay for this pipeline across the north. This is the reason why not one single pipeline company has said if the conditions are right, they would build it. If it's built, that they would buy it. The reason for their silence is that they are not interested. Just like they're not interested in buying the pipeline that we already have, the taxpayers own, that is for sale, if anybody's interested. My message to the Prime Minister was that either there should be a cap on the taxpayer dollars invested in this project, or there should be a prohibition on taxpayer dollars invested in this project, or if it is going to be taxpayer funded, that British Columbia get access to a $50 billion federally funded project as well.
So he essentially says there's no business case for a pipeline. We don't want it in BC. We don't want the federal government to impose it on us. There's no companies that want this to happen and are willing to pay for it. So he says if we're going to do this, there should be a limit on taxpayer dollars that are put towards this project, or as he says, we should also get that money on a different project in BC. Now, this is where I got a little bit curious about this statement. It seems a little bit odd to me that you'd have a premier here saying there's no good reason that we should be doing this. We shouldn't be putting taxpayer dollars towards something that we don't know will have a positive impact on Canadians themselves. That's a criticism of Mark Carney's entire economic policy, which as of late is more state-directed capitalism, where the government is deciding which projects will go forward, which ones will not, and determining what is in the national interest. He makes a fair criticism that perhaps so many taxpayer dollars shouldn't be going towards these types of projects, and instead regulations should be changed so that more private industry comes in to take on that role. But that doesn't seem to be the argument that he's making here because of what he follows that up with, saying, hey, you know what, if we are going to do this, if we are going to put all these taxpayer dollars to it, even though I'm saying it's not a good idea, as long as we get access to a $50 billion national project that helps BC, well, then it's okay. Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, has a very different frame of mind here, obviously very pro-pipeline, saying this is what Team Canada looks like, that when you've got provinces that don't have access to a shoreline, we cooperate to make sure that we can get our product to market. Goes on to say a lot of people wrap themselves in that flag, talking about how much they support Canada and want to work together, and then when it comes right down to it, not everybody lives up to that commitment. I think that's a valid point. I mean, we have all this talk about building one Canadian economy, supporting Canadian, becoming our own best customer, working together as Team Canada. This has been much of the rhetoric coming out of the government as of late. But does that only apply to the limited amount of manufacturing that we have in Canada, like limiting any barriers to interprovincial trade? That's been one of the major talking points. Or does it also apply to one of the largest industries in Canada and potentially one that could grow more, which is the energy product industry, largely in Saskatchewan and Alberta as well. Obviously, Alberta, Saskatchewan is also in on this sort of push for more of these projects to be developed. Are we still Team Canada if that means getting together on these controversial projects, or is it only Team Canada when it's most convenient to be, and when there's no work involved in saying you're Team Canada, no actual negotiation or working together that needs to happen? And it's especially interesting when we see Mark Carney traveling to other countries where they have fully exploited their oil industries. He was recently signing a deal with the UAE and arms of their sovereign investment fund, a fund that was largely built off the back of them exploiting their oil reserves to the greatest extent they could. Because there has been substantial wealth generated in some of these Persian Gulf states. Now, maybe over the long term, we're going to collectively transition to other energy sources in the future, nuclear, solar, all of these technologies. But right now, I can't help but feel Canada is being a martyr while other countries benefit and export this oil while there's demand for it. Canada seems to be sitting here on its hands, perhaps missing the one chance that we have to exploit this oil resource. But CBC is also reporting that there's likely going to be a trade-off involved here, a little bit of a quid pro quo or I scratch your back, you scratch mine situation. In order for Alberta to get this pipeline, it seems like they're going to have to make a number of agreements. Listen to this clip.
But Alberta is also making some concessions, our sources are telling us. One of those is expected to be a stronger industrial carbon tax. They have a provincial industrial carbon tax,
which Daniel Smith froze, I believe, last year at about rather than raising it. So that's an interesting move. Sorry, keep going.
No, and another is support for the Pathways Alliance carbon capture and storage plan.
So in order to get this agreement signed, it seems like Alberta is also going to have to sign on to an increasing industrial carbon tax, while at the same time agreeing to more broadly support the Pathways Alliance carbon capture program and carbon capture technology. To me, this is something that's pretty revealing, and it tells me, hey, maybe the government is less concerned about the environment itself when it's raising concerns about building a pipeline, is more concerned about potential tax revenue. One part of this is, okay, let's build a pipeline that I guess environmentalists would largely say is a negative thing for the environment, but at the same time, let's make this conditional on increasing our industrial carbon tax. It seems like it's tax for tax revenue's sake, rather than the typical framework and idea that is broadly understood of you tax what you don't want to happen, tax what you want to discourage, and don't tax or even subsidize that which you want to have happen. So there's a seeming contradiction here in them saying, well, let's go on and exploit this energy resource, but at the same time, let's use our industrial carbon tax and increase that. Is that carbon tax really about hitting environmental targets, or is it more about a tax revenue source, or pumping up these carbon capture companies and investments that the Canadian government seems to be very interested in? But there's a lot of criticism that perhaps this agreement, which is really just a memorandum of understanding, an agreement that both the federal government and Alberta want this to happen, there's an underlying feeling amongst a lot of people that this may never happen, largely because of the way that it's been talked about. The Conservatives are certainly saying this is more of a symbolic gesture. I want to play you a clip here of Mark Carney just a couple of weeks ago at a business event that frustrated a lot of people when it came to his conversation about this pipeline, which will inform why a lot of people think this may not actually happen. When asked about his progress on this file and this agreement that he was supposed to be getting to with the Alberta Premier, this is how he responded.
One of my questions was, is this pipeline going to come? So
boring.
It's not actually.
It is.
For,
it is.
For
no, but it
is.
It is because it's. Look, it's. Don't worry, we're on it. We're on it. Like we're on it.
And
but there is this whole world. Okay, hands up. Who's working on the pipeline in this room? Okay.
Isn't that a problem?
No. Look at all the variety. Like, Nav, does your, like, we have.
Yeah, if there's more prosperity, they'll get more cell phone services.
But look, okay, so what's going to drive, one of the things with, yeah, don't worry, we're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line one, don't worry, it's going to happen. But, well, something's going to happen, let's put it that way. It's not very good negotiating by my perspective.
He does signal that this memorandum of understanding is going to happen, but it doesn't seem like this is a super pressing issue for him. Instead, saying, well, it's so uninteresting, we should be focusing on other things as a government. We'll get it done with Danielle, but it's not really a big deal. Now, it's leading to the Conservative Party saying this is just a symbolic gesture. It's likely something that's not going to happen, and there might be somewhat of a poison pill in here. To what extent will the Carney government say, hey, you know what? but we need to make sure that BC signs off on this and all of BC's coastal First Nations also sign off on this. If in this memorandum of understanding, which is reportedly supposed to release tomorrow, if inside of it says that there will be vetoes given or total overwhelming veto power given to either of these two groups, the First Nations councils or the BC government itself, well, then all of this is kind of meaningless based on what they've said publicly so far. So interesting times. I'm curious what you think about this. Let me know in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Do you think that this is the right move to move forward with this? What would happen if the federal government trampled on the BC and the First Nations rights and just got something like this done? Is that the route that things should go? Or to what extent do we need to collaboratively come to terms on this? Collaboration likely means taking quite a lot longer to get anything done. What do you think about all of that? Let me know in the comments. But with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.